Welcome to Fortune Forecast, and you are in my book playlist where we are going through the book titled Secrets of Mental Supremacy, written by W.R.C. Latson. It was published in 1913 by the Elizabethtown Company. It is in the public domain. If you're new to my channel, welcome, welcome. I am Daisy, your hostess, and to our Fortune community. Thank you so much for joining me as we turn the pages of this book, Secrets of Mental Supremacy. Before moving on to the next chapter, and if you do wish to just jump right in, please go to the description and click on timestamp where it will start the chapter right away for you. Otherwise, just a couple seconds here as I kind of highlight what I found interesting from this previous chapter. I liked the analogy of thought as explained as a bullet versus a football, in the sense of how effective a concentrated bullet can deliver its impact versus a football. And I do have also in this playlist a book titled Concentrated Will Development by Theron Q. Dumont, Power of Concentration. So if you would like to jump on there, you will find other books in my playlist in the area of the power of concentration. Okay, the other thing that I'd like to mention was how and why is it important to learn how to concentrate. And I believe that concentration helps in meditation. I believe that it helps in visualization, and in that it helps in the creation process. Like, for example, I wanted to paint a mural of a Florida sandhill crane. It happens to be the bird for our city here in the city of Lake Helen, Florida. Now, looking back at the process that I used to create this mural, first, of course, the birds are so popular. They're all over the place. They come to our backyard. We see them on the streets crossing. And so I've had time to sit and watch the birds and kind of look at all their features. I was inspired. And in my mind, I saw this blank wall in the back of our house, and I'm like, well, that would be really nice to put a mural there. So in that process, I saw the bird in my mind on that wall before the bird was there. Then I did a sketch on a piece of paper, and then the rest is history. I put it on there and I painted it, and lo and behold. Good morning. I'm Daisy Raisler, Mayor for the City of Lake Helen. And the City of Lake Helen, during my time as an elected official, has named the Florida crane as our city bird. Anyway, I have been recently inspired to do some murals in my own home, and I painted a Florida sandhill crane in the back of my house. And then recently, this is like day 7 or day 8, and I've had the best fans come over and actually look at my artwork, and they've been coming here every day since. So mind me, I haven't taken any care back here, but here they are. These are my new friends visiting my artwork. How cool is that? Are they moving? I don't know. Let's take a look. Wow. So, I don't know, they might think it's a real thing, right? I actually had a real sandhill crane come and look at my artwork. So, there is a process, and I could say that the power of concentration, the focused power of concentration, allows us to become greater creators. And as the author said, when we apply our entire mind to the task at hand, then we can bring all of ourselves to it and get things done. Okay, thank you for indulging me in this chit chat. And now let's move on to chapter 8. Psychophysical development. The human body is one, an entity. In ordinary conversation, we refer to the individual as if he or she was composed of three different elements: the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. In reality, however, these three are merely different phases of one form of activity. The spirit is the great omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, eternal thing which animates both mind and body. Mind and body in turn are merely representations of the action of the spirit. In the perfectly organized individual, spirit, mind, and body would act together perfectly without friction, without effort, without the necessity of any special training. There are, in fact, a few exceptional cases in which spirit, mind, and body act with some degree of harmony, in which the pure and personal spirit, the Sat, the Atman, as the wise Hindus call it, acts in such a manner as to largely dominate the thoughts, feelings, and movements of the individual. These people we call geniuses, the shining ones of the ages. This intimate interaction of body, mind, and spirit is the mystic at-one-ment, so frequently referred in the writings of the old philosophers and Hebraic. Such harmonious action once achieved, the individual is in immediate possession of health, strength, energy, beauty, and expressiveness. As Browning writes in Paracelsus, there is an inmost center in us all, where truth abides in fullness, and to know rather consists in opening out a way whence the imprisoned splendor may escape, than in effecting entry for a light supposed to be without. A wiser teacher than Browning said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." The kingdom of heaven, as used in this and other cases by Jesus, undoubtedly refers to this mystic at-one-ment between spirit, mind, and body. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Two phases of human action. In every human action there are two distinct phases, thought and motion. Thoughts lie hidden in the gray caverns of the brain. They are potential, latent. Motions are physical, obvious. Every thought, every impulse, every motion has its ellipsis in some action of the muscles. And when such thought, impulse, or emotion is perfectly expressed in muscular activity, we have the ideal human being. In this connection, it may be appropriate to introduce two brief quotations from the writings of Professor William James of Harvard College. He says, "There is no more valuable precept in moral education than this. If we wish to conquer undesirable emotion tendencies in ourselves, we must assiduously, and in the first instance cold-bloodedly, go through the outward movements of those contrary dispositions we prefer to cultivate. Smooth the brow, brighten the eye, contract the dorsal rather than the ventral aspect of the frame, and speak in the major key. Pass the genial compliment, and your heart must be frigid indeed if it does not gradually thaw." And in another place, the same author has said, "No reception without reaction, no impression without correlative expression. This is the great maxim which the teacher ought never to forget. An impression which simply flows in at the pupil's eyes or ears and in no way modifies the active life is an impression gone to waste. it is physiologically incomplete. It leaves no fruits behind it in the way of capacity acquired. Even as mere impression, it fails to produce its proper effect upon the memory. For to remain fully among the acquisitions of this latter faculty, it must be wrought into the whole cycle of our operations. Its motor consequences are what clinch it. Some effect due to it in the way of activity must return to the mind in the form of the sensation of having acted and connect itself with the impression. The most durable impressions, in fact, are those on account of which we speak or act, or else are inwardly convulsed. Of all the many evil effects of what we call civilization, the most blasting is that its general influence is to break up the close interrelation between thought and motion. In order to live the conventional life of the well-behaved man or woman, one is compelled to constantly stifle and deny desires, impulses, thoughts, and such denial inevitably leads to injury of mind and body. Relation of mind and body. Mental activity simply means certain chemical and mechanical changes occurring in nervous matter. These changes occur not only in the nervous matter of the brain, but also in the nerves which cause muscular action. This is a large subject, and it is quite impossible within the limits of work such as this to make it clear. It may be said at once, however, that each emotion and each thought has its corresponding output along the motor nerves, that each motion and each thought has a muscular picture which is peculiar to itself. Now, if the muscles be free and flexible, the thought which occupies the higher nerve centers will be translated by a certain position of the muscles. In other words, a person marked by such peculiarity will be expressive and interesting. All the great singers, actors, and orators, all those most successful on the stage, in politics or in society, have been distinguished by this peculiar expressiveness. In order to be expressive, several things are requisite. The body must be erect, the joints and hinges of the body, as explained in previous chapters, being each in its proper place. There must have been acquired the habit of keeping the muscles in a state of relaxation and receptivity. Among the many exercises which the writer has employed for the purposes of developing this power are the few given herewith. A careful study and practice of these exercises can hardly fail to result in an increase in general expressiveness, health, and personality. Exercise number 1. Anticipation, pleasurable expectation. Imagine that someone is coming toward you whom you very much wished to see. You would naturally lean forward to greet him, extending one or both hands and smiling. Now, holding this idea, this mental picture before the mind, allow the flexible body to show it forth in gesture, facial expression, and a few words of greeting spoken aloud. Exactly what you do does not in the least matter. Simply hold the thought so intently that for the moment you accept the imagined situation as real and let the body go. This exercise may be varied infinitely by changing the picture, always, however, imagining a situation such as will produce a feeling of pleasurable anticipation. Exercise number 2. Horror. Imagine that you are looking at some dangerous animal, a snake if you are a man, if a woman, a mouse will answer every purpose. that you cannot escape. You naturally draw back in horror. Like the former exercise, in this you are to forget the body entirely, to let it go, putting all your attention upon the imagined situation. In this exercise, as in the preceding, any situation may be invented which will induce the thought of horror. Exercise number 3. Joy. Imagine some situation which would awaken in you a state of joy and yield the body up to the feeling. Exercise number 4. Guilt. Try to imagine that you have committed some crime, say for instance theft. Imagine that you are brought before a judge and that you are pleading guilty and asking for mercy. Allow this thought to permeate mind and body, showing by gestures and attitude your appreciation of the situation. Exercise number 5. Accusation. Imagine that someone has committed a crime against you, that you are facing him before a tribunal. Make your accusation, if necessary, in words. Take at the same time the attitude appropriate to this emotional state. Exercise number 6. Depression. Imagine such circumstances as would produce in you a feeling of depression and yield the body to it. These exercises, although they may seem unusual, have powerful and far-reaching results. That this is true, anyone may prove to himself in a week of faithful practice. It must be understood, however, that they cannot be properly practiced until the body has been made erect and thoroughly flexible by a persevering practice of the exercises described in preceding chapters. As to mental images, literature and poetry afford many suggestions. David at the bier of Absalom, Hero over the body of Leander, Socrates drinking the cup of hemlock, Luther on the way to Worms, Hamlet before his father's ghost, Robinson Crusoe when he discovers the footprint in the sand, Rip Van Winkle on awakening from his long sleep, Mark Antony in his speech to the Romans, Regulus parting from his wife and children. These and many other scenes afford vivid dramatic situations. In all this work, the great point is to subordinate the mind, to make the body obedient, flexible, acquiescent, and interpretive of the mind. Those who are interested in any form of expressive art, dramatic, lyrical, or scenic, will find these simple exercises of value. And that concludes Chapter 8. Don't go anywhere. Stay right here. We're going to go ahead and hop over to Chapter 9. Perhaps you'd like to refill your cup, but I'll be right here and I'm going to get started. Chapter 9. The Lost Arts of Childhood. A quote from Matthew 18, verse 3. Except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. And also from the book of Matthew, chapter 19, verse 14. For of such is the kingdom of heaven. The more deeply the man of science studies the sayings attributed to Jesus, the seer of Judea, the more profoundly is he impressed not only by the brilliant intellect and wonderful oratory of Jesus, but by his marvelous insight into subjects which were in his time unknown even to the most lucid thinkers of ancient times. In the history of the race, 2,000 years is not a very long time. And previous to the beginning of the Christian era, there had been accomplished along lines of philosophical, physical, and cosmological research much more than with all our boasted erudition has been done since. In fact, some of our most striking discoveries are merely corroborations of knowledge of the Brahmins, the Chinese, the Phoenicians, and other of the ancient peoples who lived thousands of years before the alleged appearance of Jesus of Nazareth. How much of this ancient knowledge Jesus possessed, it is impossible to say. Probably most, if not all. One thing is certain. Some things he knew and said, which, so far as we know, were entirely original and iconoclastic. And one of these things, entirely new then, and almost entirely new now for that matter, was to the effect that in child study we should find the key to the kingdom of heaven. Now, as I have explained elsewhere, in these sermons of a scientist, the kingdom of heaven, or the kingdom of God, is not a place where good people go when they die. The kingdom of heaven is a state of mind, of spirit, the state in which spirit, therefore mind, therefore body, are all three in harmony with the great Oversoul and with his laws. For us who are adults, who for 3, 4, or 5 decades have been guilty of the thousand crimes, physical, mental, spiritual, incidental to commonplace living, for us it is necessary to be reborn, to be radically changed in spirit, therefore in mind and body, before we can enter the kingdom of heaven, the physical realm of peace, rest, and power. So Jesus said to the disciples, "Verily I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven." By which he meant exactly what he did when he said to Nicodemus, "Except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God." Of the many millions that have, with close attention and deep reverence, read the words I have quoted, few, if any, have seen the clear, profound, practical wisdom of the statement of Jesus that only the man, the woman who became as a little child could enter into the realm of peace and power. And now, let us analyze a little. What is there about the child which we should emulate? What characteristics has the child unpossessed by the adult, which when developed in the adult will give entrance into the kingdom of God? Mind you, it is not stated that children are in the kingdom of heaven, nor can they be. They lack the actual knowledge, the experience, the poise. But it is in the experience, the hard and bitter experience, which develops poise and power, that man loses the simplicity, trustfulness, and tenderness of childhood. It is when, in addition to his adult powers, he achieves the lost arts and powers of childhood, that he enters the kingdom of heaven. What are the lost arts of childhood? Let us consider first some of the physical characteristics of normal childhood. The healthy child is remarkable for his erect body, his upturned face, his clear and far-reaching voice, the ease and grace of his movements, his wonderful endurance. That these are among the normal powers of the average healthy child may be determined by a few minutes of close observation upon any playground. A moment's thought will show how rare are such powers among adults. The healthy child is erect. Therefore, the chest is high and expanded. The body is carried like an erect column, and the breathing is slow and deep. This gives the only conditions under which the normal tone of voice in song or speech can be reproduced. The erect carriage means that the joints and muscles of the body are in their normal and mechanical relation to each other. So we have in the normal child movements which are at once rapid, graceful, and economical, so economical of vital force that the child's endurance has passed into a proverb. Children will keep on romping for hours at a time without fatigue, but an adult who joins in their play will usually be tired out in 10 or 15 minutes. Why is this? Because the child moves properly and the adult does not move properly, because the bodily movement is one of the lost arts of childhood. A master of the difficult art of rest. And then the ability to rest. The tired child throws himself down on the couch or floor or ground and rests. The tired adult, on the other hand, often fidgets, tosses, fumes, and worries because he can't sleep. Then his sleep, when it comes, is not restful. And he awakens after 8 or more hours quite as fatigued as when he went to bed. Few adults have retained from childhood the power to rest. For the power to rest is another one of the lost arts of childhood. And he who would enter the kingdom of heaven, the realm of peace, must be a master of the difficult art of rest. The world is full of men and women whose most ardent ambition is to succeed in some art, music, painting, acting, writing. And out of the multitude who drudge laboriously, unrestingly at their chosen task, how few succeed. But study the little children. Watch them at play when they believe themselves unobserved. They are playing house, school, church, and so on. On no stage in the world will you find acting so true, so finished, so perfect an exposition of the actor's conception of his part. From a purely technical standpoint, the dramatic work of the average, healthy, intelligent child is beyond criticism. It is simply perfect. And then the child's moral and spiritual qualities. By nature, he is absolutely truthful. Truthful both in the sense of seeing the truth and of telling it, until he is seduced into lying by fear and bad example. Michelet, the deep and tender philosopher, has said, "No consecrated absurdity of mankind would have survived one generation had not the man silenced the objection of the child." Do you remember the first lies they told you? How strange it seemed for people whom perhaps you loved and feared and worshipped with the pure, white-hot intensity of the child. How strange for them to do that! Soon, however, you learn to do it yourself. Learn the fatal utility, the convenience of the lie. And so the angel, with the flaming sword, waved you away from the Eden of unconquerable innocence. And only after many years of wandering in waste places, only by being born again, may you re-enter Eden, the kingdom of heaven. And with the truthfulness of childhood, the simplicity, the kindliness, the democracy, the independence, all of these are among the lost powers of childhood, and all of these we must achieve if we would possess the highest powers of body, mind, and spirit. Except ye become a little child, no true power, physical, artistic, intellectual, spiritual, is possible. To him or her who in simplicity accepts the teaching, the kingdom is close at hand. And a little child shall lead them. The truly great of earth are not the ones most highly polished by conventional educational methods. On the other hand, they are often the lonely and the neglected, They have starved in garrets and dreamed in hovels. From squalid prison cells they have sent forth thoughts that breathe. Under the silent stars they have conceived thoughts as high as the stars themselves. They are those who through great tribulation have been born again, and who, as little children, have entered into the realm of peace, wisdom, love, and power, the mystic kingdom of heaven. And this concludes Chapter 9 and the last reading of The Secrets of Mental Supremacy. Well, my darlings, as I'm here with Fortune Forecast, excited as a child to bring content, to share with you, to play with you, to talk with you, to narrate books for you, to enter together the kingdom of heaven. All right, well, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and hope to see you at the next video. Be blessed.